During a press conference this morning, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth further defended America's targeted strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. He and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane presented new information on the extent of the damage. The Secretary also torched legacy media for hoping the strikes, quote, maybe weren't effective and trying to play them against President Trump. Here to discuss this, Congressman Darin Lahood, who serves on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. He represents the 16th Congressional District of Illinois. Congressman Lahood, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always good to see you.
Good to be with you, Tony.
So I know the House is scheduled for its own briefing tomorrow from the White House on the extent of the damage done. But what are you hearing so far, and would you call this a success?
I would absolutely call it a success. The Intelligence Committee on the House side has been meeting throughout this week in our classified briefings in the SCIF and going over that. I can't get into the details on that. But as CIA Director Ratcliffe said yesterday, what President Trump did severely damaged the Iranian nuclear program. That was also put forth today at the press conference that you referenced with General Kane and also with Defense Secretary Hegseth. This was a successful mission. But let's back up a little bit. President Trump gave the Iranians an opportunity to come to the table. Over a 60-day window, his envoy, Steve Witkoff, met with the Iranians, told them they need to come forth with a plan on how they get rid of their nuclear program. That didn't happen. And on day 61, of course, the Israelis moved in and did what they did in a very successful way. And that was followed by the bunker bombs that, again, severely damaged and decommissioned the nuclear program in Iran, which was a calculated risk. There's no doubt about it. But I'm glad President Trump made that decision after careful thought with a lot of smart, bright people in his cabinet. And ultimately, this is going to make the Middle East safer, America safer, and the world.
There's been some question about the enriched uranium that was at about 60%. They got to go to 90 to be weaponized to use for nuclear grade weapons. That some of that was removed and hidden prior to the strikes. What do we know about that?
Well, I don't think we know the full extent of that. I'm skeptical that that was done appropriately, but I don't think we'll know for a little bit of time here. Again, the strategic and tactical mission of what we did with these bombs hit their targets. As you know, these bunker bombs go down 20 or 30 stories. Tony, we're the only ones in the world that have this capability. And again, they severely damage, using the words of the CIA director, the nuclear program. And I think it's a success.
The attack, combined with what the Israelis did, has also set back Iran in their conventional warfare as well with their missiles.
No doubt about it. Iran is in a very weakened position because of what the U.S. and the Israelis have been able to do. But you just think about what the Trump administration has done since they came in, Tony. Iran had all these proxies throughout the Middle East, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the Shia proxies in Iraq. Assad was also one of their backers of terrorism. In many ways, those have all been eliminated. We're still dealing with the Houthis, but it has been a concerted effort, both the Israelis and the United States, to weaken Iran, and that's the position they're in. In the end, the religious zealots and the mullahs in Iran, they made a decision they'd rather have a bomb than peace, and this is the result of what happened over the last 12 days here.
I think it would be difficult to find another period in time in history where we've seen so much transformation in the Middle East. Now, the dust hasn't settled. We don't know what the future looks like, but certainly the landscape, the geopolitical landscape has shifted in the Middle East. The key is going forward. Can peace be sustained with a Islamic regime that you just made reference to still in place?
Well, if you look at their track record over 49 years that the Iranian mullahs have been running the theocracy in Iran, state sponsor of terrorism, everything they've been involved with, I'm skeptical and I'm dubious. I don't. I wish this would deter them from continuing to go down the path that they've already gone down. But as you know, Tony, they continue to not abide by any international norms or be compliant with anything that's been put forth before. We'll see. This should send the ultimate deterrence. I hope this causes them to come to the table and want to negotiate and denuclearize. We can only hope. But I think we couldn't have sent a stronger message than we did over the last several days.
Congressman Lahood, I would certainly agree to that. I want to kind of shift a bit, still related. You're a member of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Now, many would say, all right, so what does that have to do with Iran? It has a lot to do with Iran because China has been holding up Iran and supplying it with funds to be able to move forward with what it's been doing.
Well, you're exactly right, Tony. And I don't think we focused on this enough. And I don't say this to scare people, but China has a plan to replace the United States, and they're working at it every single day from a national security standpoint, a diplomatic standpoint, an economic standpoint, technological standpoint. And them supporting countries like Iran, buying much of their energy, has helped fuel and fund Iran and the mullahs there. And, you know, that, again, has not been covered enough, but that's the reality. And on the Intelligence Committee and also on the Select Committee on China, we've been focused on this, but I think it's got to be raised to a whole nother level. And I know the Secretary of Defense talked a little bit about it today, and President Trump is aware of this, but we can't let China off the hook on this. We got to continue to press them to stop supporting Iran the way that they have.
I mean, my sources in Israel, their intel suggests that Iran was able to rebuild the missile fuel sites, the solid missile fuel sites that they destroyed back in October of last year, in large part because of Chinese money that was flooding in to support Iran.
Well, you need resources and you need money. And I mean, that's the one thing they have is energy sources there, natural gas and oil. And the Chinese continue to buy it along with other rogue nations. And that needs to be, again, prioritized and put at the top of our list. We can't allow Iran to continue to have that funding source moving forward. And I think as we think about the trade negotiations that are ongoing with China, this has to be a part of those. And I think it will be highlighted from a national security standpoint. The last point that I will make on this, Tony, is I think the national security team that President Trump has put in place is definitely much more focused on China and the Indo-Pacific region, whether that's Secretary Rubio, whether that's Vice President Vance, whether that's Director Ratcliffe, whether that's Director Patel, and others, focused on China as a threat. And hopefully that will sink in as we continue the negotiations with China.
Well, I do want to bring up one more point on China, and they're the largest purchaser of Iranian oil. And the president earlier this week suggesting that sanctions might be loosened to allow China to continue to buy oil from Iran. I mean, how would you see sanctions continuing to be a tool to keep Iran in line?
Well, I would not be of that opinion of allowing that we should loosen sanctions. Again, Iran has shown no track record of being compliant, of working in a way, has been trustworthy. Now, if Iran came forward and said, we want to negotiate, we want to recognize Israel, we want to be good actors in the Middle East, then I think that's a different story. We've heard none of that and seen none of that. We've seen just the opposite. Tony, I don't know if you saw this past week, but you know the level of propaganda and misinformation that the Iranian state television has put up. They had a parade saying that they had won the war. Right.
And they're executing people openly to send fear among those who would challenge the regime. You said something that I think is really, really important. That could be a acid test, if you will, of whether or not they truly are going to give up their nuclear plan and want to be a part of the broader global community, and that is recognizing the right of Israel to exist. They have not done that. I would be hard-pressed to see them do it.
Well, we'll see. Again, there's a number of things that they can do. to show that they are good actors. That has not been a way that anybody would describe them moving forward, but there is a pathway for them to move forward, and we'll see if those negotiations continue, and we can hope for that.
Yes.
But I think we have to be skeptical and dubious.
Trust but verify. Congressman Lahood, great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today. Appreciate your insight.
Good to be with you, Tony. Thanks.